Well, Scott Service sees some improvement, and I know that seems hard to believe after 2 series losses against teams that you were really not just hoping but needing to have good performances against. And also really interesting series. Thank you, Maddie, for this. No, overall, the score of the Baltimore series was 19-10 Mariners. And if you knew that going in, wouldn't you have expected a series win? Scott Service, for as frustrating as these losses is, says that he does see some improvement.
Outside of today, getting shut down, I do think we're trending in the right way offensively, and I don't think you can just, throw it in the trash because you have a rough day. You have to stay with it. And, homestand coming up, we need to continue to swing the bats there like we did here a few days in the middle of this trip, because it's in there. We're capable of doing it. We just have to stay consistent.
I was looking, Bump, at the last 15, last 7, last 30, just like the basic MLB splits for team hitting. And there is an area of improvement that's really notable for the Mariners. And this, of course, was buoyed by their performance against Domingo Germán against the Yankees. And, of course, in their game against the Orioles, including one of their losses, back and forth with a couple solo home runs in that one. And that is with home runs. Year to date, which obviously is still affected by some more recent improvement, they're 17th overall. If you were to isolate to April, I'm sure they would be a little bit lower than that. The last 7, though, they are tied for third in home runs with 12, just 5th in home runs over the last 15. So they are hitting more home runs of late. Over the last 2 weeks, they have 20 home runs. That is compared to really struggling earlier in the season. But overall, they're still striking out roughly the same amount of times, or roughly at the same rate, that is. Year to date, they're 4th in strikeouts. Over the last 15, they're 4th in strikeouts. Over the last 7, they're 3rd in strikeouts. So they are hitting more home runs. They are still having some really frustrating at-bats. Yeah, they are. Teams that figured them out, right? Spin that thing. They're going to swing that thing. Exactly right. That's exactly right. I guarantee that's what the scouting report says when they sit down. You open up the entire book. You're the Nationals. You sit down. It's just a blank page with like size 72 times New Roman font. Swing that thing. Right. No, spin that thing. They will swing that thing. That's exactly what it says. And it won't make a lot of contact. And then a stat that I've been looking at too, or that obviously I think we want to see is extra bases, right? Yeah. In the last 7 days, they are 27th when it comes to this racking up doubles. I'm not going to look at triples because I think they have like 2 or 3 over the past 7 days. And then the last 15 days, they are 22nd. OPS, they're 18th the last 7, and 21st the last 15th. And then slugging, they're 14th and 11th. So I think Scott is doing what we just tried to do right now. Yeah. Is that you shrink the season and say, let's be in this moment. Yeah. Let's not think about the team we saw at the beginning of the season. Let's really evaluate who they are right now. And even if we look at them right now, we're saying, okay, they're hitting more bombs. Okay, but they're not getting on base the way that we would like them to. The slugging isn't where we'd like to. But I think Service has to do this. He's got to find a positive. So when he does talk to this team and he is holding them accountable, he can also give them something else. Too, like, hey, guys, we're hitting more home runs, man. Yep. I think we might be chasing on a bunch of pitches, still not controlling the zone the way we want to, but here's a positive for you. We're hitting more bombs, and that's what he has to do. So it's always funny because I hear people, then they start getting on their feelings about Service and Dipoto. When they say anything positive about a team that's 2 games under 500, I go, what do you expect them to do? You expect them just to come up here and beat their team up all the time? Trash. Nah, of course not going to say that. But they do keep it real. They do say, we just did a segment where we talked about Scott talking about distractions and Dipoto. We've heard just a commercial now where he's saying, I'm responsible for putting this out there. But you always got to get some positive in there as well. You can't just beat them down all the time. Here's the thing with the Mariners. They've kind of been a tale of 2 teams, and I think that's why you still see that discrepancy between some of those improvements in the last 7, while other things like strikeouts have remained roughly the same. And they are not winning close games, so it's almost like they have to win in those those blowouts. From Ryan Divish, who published this in his column from Sunday, the Mariners are 9-25 when held to 3 runs or fewer. Meanwhile, of course, they've been stellar when they kind of take off and everything's swinging and everything's great and they can actually play as a complete team, but they have not been winning close games. So when I consider that, 9-25 and scoring 3 runs or fewer, when I consider that they have, primarily excelled against teams well below 500, and when I take those 2 things into mind, Scott Service's point is true, but it needs to be more than that. because just taking a step forward or seeing some improvement at the plate is not enough to be a playoff team. Better isn't good enough so long as you're still this inconsistent.
Do you remember when, I believe his name was Lynn, 36-year-old pitcher for the White Sox, Lance Lynn, and 16 strikeouts, and you listen to these guys, meaning the Mariners and management, the players, talk about that game, and it just didn't feel good to them, right? They're like, we struck out 16 times and I think 18 times total, but we still found a way to win. I look at that and I go, that's what good teams do, though. You find a way to win, even when you're being dominated on the mound by a 36-year-old who's done nothing all year. Sometimes it's going to be like that. Every game's not going to work out the way that you want to. So I think that is the difference, and we've mentioned it before, between this year's team and last year's team, is that they found ways to win those games more often. Whereas this year, we know, all right, they jump out to a 3-0 lead, it's going to be tough. I threw out the stat last week to where pretty much they start the games and end the games horribly, but in the middle, statistically, they seem to be okay. And again, that to me is a sign of a team that
can't finish almost.
That just doesn't have it right now. So that's the difference. You find a way to win the close games. They did that last year. It seems like this year, if they're not blowing them out, then they probably don't get it done.
This is really unfair. I just don't have the same expectation when they go into extras that something magic can happen for them.
Right?
I really don't.
Yeah, I feel you. Last year, it was almost automatic.
Yeah, with Sunday's game, I still was like, or not Sunday, excuse me, with Saturday's game, once they went into extras, I was like, I don't know about this one. This just doesn't feel right. Of course, it ends up being a walk-off 2-run home run.